All right, guys, so this week, very special interview. A friend of mine, we are here with Alice Cooper, and we are here at his new teen center. So, Coop, tell us a little bit, what is this teen center? What are we doing here?
You know, I've always, my biggest part of my career was to teenagers. And so I figured it was time to give back to the teenagers. And the teenagers' world right now is a lot more dangerous than it was when I was a teenager. Everything out there is pretty dangerous on the street. This place started very interesting. I was watching a very awkward drug deal go down between two 16-year-old kids on a bicycle. And it was just so obvious what was going on. And I thought to myself, how does that kid not know he might be the best guitar player in town? And the other kid might be the best drummer. They've never had that chance to do that. You know, they're kind of like, everybody's born into a different kind of blueprint of who they're going to be. What happens if we opened a place where they could come in and find what they're good at? You know, find your talent, you know. So we said an all-purpose place, and it's got to be for free. We gotta say anybody from the most expensive house in Paradise Valley to, you know, to the worst house any place. They're all invited. If you're a teenager, you're invited. We don't care if you're Taliban. We don't care if you're transgender. We don't care who you are. If you're a teenager, we're not a church. We're Christian guys that put this together, but we're not a church. We're just here to provide this and maybe get kids going in a different direction from what the street has to offer. And it works. When I've seen kids go from being really, I mean, either dead or jail, and now they're not in gangs, they're in bands.
That's awesome.
And that's a big difference. And girls, same thing. You know, I mean, girls are dancing now. They have poise now. They're not this. My wife teaches ballet, and she makes them. When they go in for a job reference, they walk in with a positive-looking thing. It's not just, yeah, I want a job, you know. So it works in so many levels. Some of the kids that can't play guitar or they're not artistic come in here, and they go into the studio, and they're wired to know what to do. They go in there and they start playing with the dials, and I'm going, I've been doing this for 60 years, and I don't know how to work the dials in there. And a 15-year-old kid can do Pro Tools. You know, and so that, I told him right up front, I said, if you can work Pro Tools, you are the second most important person in the studio. I said, because now recording is all done with Pro Tools. I said, you can start it at 6 figures a year. So it's very vocational. Everything in here is very vocational, but even if it's not going to be your vocation, it gets you going on a positive thing. You know, and that's really the whole idea.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
I think like kids, they deal with peer pressure, and it's hard for them to be themselves, especially in creative spaces like music and art. What does it kind of mean for you to be able to provide them that opportunity? Was it tough for you growing up?
It just seemed to drop in my lap. You know, this whole idea just seemed to bloom. There you are. What are you going to do with it? You know, and it just so happened that Cheryl and I, my wife and I, knew enough guys, and you know, one guy's a lawyer, one guy's a doctor, one guy's on the board, and we could network out and actually start getting the money to put all this together. Of course, we do the Christmas pudding, that's our show, and then the golf tournament, which is the other big, you know, money maker for us, and all of that is what makes this work. But to me, it was just a necessity. I looked at it and I said, they took all of this stuff out of school. All the arts are gone out of school.
Sad.
That's who we are now. And I think that's where kids really develop their personality. They don't develop their personality over algebra.
No.
They develop their
Definitely.
personality over what they're drawing or what they're listening to or what they're playing or you know, that's where your real personality comes in. So that's what this is for, you know.
I think I developed a lot of my personality skipping algebra. That's probably
I think we all did.
I had girlfriends doing my algebra for me. Yeah.
There you go.
I was in a band. Come on, you got to be. You're in a band.
That's kind of an all-access pass.
Yeah, I
for
was
a lot
Ferris
of things.
Bueller. I mean, you know.
Question?
I was just curious how much has the music industry changed since you started till now, like what's the one thing that really is just incredibly jarring?
Record sales.
Okay.
And the thing about it was, we were the next generation after the Beatles. We learned to write songs listening to the Beatles, who were the best on the planet. And so if you listen to Ozzy or Alice or Aerosmith, our songs are very melodic. They're hard rock, but there's melody in there, and there's lyrics, and it tells a story and the whole thing, because we listen to the Beatles. Now the next generation listen to us. The generation after that listen to them. The further you get away from the Beatles, generation-wise, the worse the songwriting gets. And I always tell young bands, they say, what should we do? And I said, listen to the Beatles. I said, then if you're angry, write me an angry song, but write it the way the Beatles did. And it works all the time. They can't do it most of the time. They want to just do a riff and a drum beat and scream at me, And I get it. Okay, that's as far as you're going to go in the business then. Because the only thing that keeps you going in this business is how good are your songs. If your songs are great, you'll go on. Look at Elton,
Yeah.
his songs. Look at our we had 14 top 40 singles. On top of it being the theatrical thing that it is, and the
Right.
dark comedy thing that it is, we had those singles that were out there competing with the Beatles and the Stones and everybody. If you don't have that, you're not going to be around very long. So that's what we want them to do in here. We want them to learn how to write songs, not just riffs. Write songs.
Where did that come from? I mean, you're the godfather of shock rock, but it's like it's more than just going to see a show. It feels like when you go see Alice Cooper, it's like a performance.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot more to it. Where did that come from to just kind of like crank it up a notch?
Again, it was a necessity. It was one of those things where I looked around, and we were as good a band as anybody out there, but you could be in the middle of that whole ocean of bands. What makes that one band stand out? What rock didn't have was a villain. Rock had all these rock heroes. They didn't have any villains. I said, all these Peter Pans and no Captain Hook. And I said, I'll gladly be Captain Hook, And so the Alice Cooper thing was born at exactly the right time. Rock needed a villain. And I said, if it's going to be a villain, it's got to have a sense of humor to it. And, at first the parents and the church and politicians banning us everywhere, didn't get it till they saw the show. Then they saw the show and they went, oh, now it's a family show. People bring their kids, they bring their grand, and they see it and they go, oh, it's really funny, or it's really dark, but it's funny, and it's sexy, but it's romantic, and it's got a religious point to it, and it's got this and that. Oh, it's not just, they wanted to paint us into a corner and say, oh, they're satanic, because they got a snake on stage. And I go, vaudeville had snakes on stage back in, the 20s. It was just making the audience kind of like grow up and finally listen to see what we were doing. Finally, then, it became like, okay to see Alice Cooper. But, for a long while there, we were like the scourge of...
Was it hard to deal with like the difference between Alice Cooper, the stage presence, and the person that you are?
There were two entirely different people. At one point, there wasn't. When I was coming up and we were getting successful, you get drunk on that success. Mm-hmm. And, you're hanging out with the Doors and you're hanging out with the Stones and people like that. And you don't really know where you start and the character ends, or who you're going to be that night. You're going out to party with your friends, and do I have to put makeup on? Do I have to wear a snake? Do I have to? Because it was really confusing. I didn't want to disappoint anybody. When I got sober, I realized that the character I'm playing is a character. I'm not him. I play him on stage the same way I would play Dracula, or the same way I would play any character on stage. He doesn't really belong in this world. He belongs on stage. So when I leave the stage, he stays there. And then I can go to the movies and I can be myself and all this. And it actually makes it even a better story. You know, this sort of schizophrenia that's controlled. But now I talk about Alice in the third person. You know, like my producer and I and Shep, my manager, will say, okay, this, and this. I don't think Alice would do that. You know, Alice wouldn't wear that, would he? And that's me talking. Yeah. And I'm talking about Alice in the third person because he doesn't exist without us making him exist. So it's the same way with Lady Gaga. It's the same way with almost every character you see on stage. When you see that person on stage, they're bigger than life, and they're 10 feet tall. And then when you see them off stage, they should be just like you, you know. And that's what I really had to get together, was that. And now I can coexist with Alice very well. Yeah.
That's too cool. I know some of the other big personas out there, the Rob Zombies and the Marilyn Manson, some of the stories that you've told me kind of over the years.
They're so funny. I mean, we toured with, we had Rob Zombie and I did a tour together. And, you know, you think, oh, this Rob Zombie is so out there. He's the nicest guy in the world. Very funny. And on stage, he's just terrifying, you know. But I had a dressing room next to his, and he'd be getting ready for the show. And there's this horrible disco music playing from the 70s, you know, and I'd go, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, this stuff gets me off, man. This is how I get up. You ready? And I'm going, what?
What?
Disco music.
He'll be talking to him, and he says, yeah, he says, you know, I'm making this movie, really horrific movies. And he said, but I really want to do like a kind of a frothy comedy with Jennifer Aniston and Ryan Reynolds, you know. And I said, I want to see that.
Makes sense.
You know.
Why not?
Yeah.
No, but you'd be surprised the things that you would expect. You know, like you would never expect Alice Cooper. In those days, Alice Cooper was either going to end up in jail or dead or something, playing golf with Phil Mickelson. You never would have seen that ever happen. But when I made the break, I went, okay, I got to live my life, and Alice can live his life, you know.
When did golf start coming into the picture for you?
It was about the time that when you're on the road, you only have you get into Wichita at 7 a.m, and you have all day because you're not working till 9 o'clock that night. And golf seemed to be, everybody I know that's in a band was an athlete of some sort. One guy in my band was basketball, one guy played baseball, they were all athletes. I mean, when you get on the bus after a show, it's ESPN. You know, it's not weird videos. It's, I had my team do tonight, you know. Right. But that's almost every band's like that. And golf is one of those things where you can be anywhere in the world and find a golf course. So my guitar player plays, or my bass player plays, and found out later on Iggy Pop plays, Dylan plays, Roger Waters plays, all the guys that you would never expect, Lou Reed, all ended up playing golf because it was such a release from what we do at night, you know. And it doesn't matter how good you are. It's just getting outside and playing for 5 hours, you know. And to me, I said, if I'm going to play, I want to play good, you know. And I was a good baseball player, so I caught on very quick, you know, the game. And then I had to be a closet golfer because my fans hated it. Hated it.
A closet golfer.
Their parents played golf.
Right.
And I was the anti-parent guy, right?
Can't be a golfer.
And I said, well, okay, look at it this way. I said, your dad won't let you come and see me play, right? Yeah, right. Mention to him that I can beat him in golf. And all of a sudden, there was a different respect. The father would say, what? He's a 2 handicap. Well, you can go see him.
All right, I guess he's okay.
Get some swing tips from him while you're there.
I mean,
He plays to a 2 index.
it's just funny that, you know, that once you called that one on the father, who was like the really conservative, you know, he'd say, well, he can't be all bad. He's a 2 handicap.
Common ground. So that's a good way to kind of bring us into when you started playing golf, and I know there's a long established relationship with Callaway.
Yeah.
And little do people know how far back that relationship goes.
It was, 30 years almost now. I met Ely at a party, and I said, Ely, hit the ball, Alice. I'm Alice. And he goes, oh, man, I love that. That's great, man. We could do that. That's a great idea for a commercial, you know. And the great thing about Ely Callaway was that everything he touched, he brought in something new. He'd say, well, how come there has to be a hosel? Why can't you just put the shaft right into the head? Well, I don't know. Let's try it. Big Bertha's born, right. The great Big Bertha. He was they called him Maverick because everything he did was against the book, and it worked. He said, the first time we did a commercial, I happen to know about commercials that you never use a snake in a commercial because women will turn the commercial off. And long hair. So we're going to do a commercial for the Tuttle putter, and me and Johnny Miller. And so I show up at the commercial, my hair's tied back, and he goes, no, with the hair, want all the hair, And I get out on the where all the cameras are set up, and there's a boa constrictor on the golf course, on the green. And I go, what happens here? And he says, well, you putt the ball, it hits the snake and goes in the hole. And then he says, nice putt, Alice. I said, this is going to take 12 hours. I said, just because the snake's moving all the time, Third take it went in.
Oh, man.
I mean,
The good thing about that is that now you've got 12 hours booked. There's a driving range there. And Johnny Miller and I are on the driving range. Let me see your swing. And I was one of his pupils. He says, everything's done with your hands. He said, don't change your swing, change your hands. You want to go high left, high right, low. He says, it's 7 different positions of your hands. And he taught me all the positions. And so he was my teacher. Johnny Miller, not a bad teacher,
Pretty decent right there.
And then I met Rocco Mediate. Rocco Mediate and I got to be really good friends. And Rocco really helped me out. And then the one that really helped me with my short game was John Daly. John Daly, 60 yards in, was the best, had the best hands of anybody. All those guys out there, you'd say, who's the best guy 60 yards in? They go, John Daly. And this was when he was getting sober. And so anytime that we played a tournament, I was in his cart with a case of Diet Cokes. And there's so many John Daly stories that are great. I mean, John Daly, with everybody out there on the tour wants John Daly to win because he's not the country club guy. He's the public hot dog, a beer, and a cigarette. While everybody's hitting balls, he's cigarette. And he's got more talent than all of them.
I got to know, what's your favorite John Daly story that can actually be repeated?
Well, I'll tell you something that's really interesting about John Daly is that his respect. The guys out there know how good he is. Tiger Woods talks about John Daly and says, John Daly's on his game, I wouldn't want to play him. And Phil, everybody talks about John Daly like that. But he was Babe Ruth. He was Babe Ruth. Everybody would come. It didn't matter if he was last place in the tournament. More people were following John Daly than they were anybody else because they wanted to see him hit it 300 yards. But there's so many stories. I mean, he was playing with a guy. This is him. And the guy says, oh, I like your watch. It was a gold Rolex. And he goes, oh, here, you can have it. And on the back of it, it says, to John Daly, U.S. Open winner, PGA winner, da-da-da. And that was him. He would just give it away, And if he had $5 and you needed $5, you would get the $5. One of the great stories is we played the Bob Hope, and he has a band, that's playing in a club that night. and I accidentally walked in. And they're
How can you say accidentally?
and they're playing "Knock Knock Knocking on Heaven's Door," Dylan's song that can go on forever.
Oh yeah.
And he got me up on stage, and I sang there, and I'm singing, knock, 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 and I was up for 20 minutes doing this song, and looking and going, is there an ending to this? And I see, what's his name? Timberlake walks in, and I went, because he was on my team, and I said, hey, come over here. He comes over, and I hand him the mic. I said, you're in. The next day, he goes out there thinking, he says, I was on that stage for an hour. I couldn't find anybody else to pass the microphone off to.
Brilliant. Hey, Tim.
But I mean, John was great. He was everybody's best friend. And I mean, he's like Keith Moon. Everybody's got 25 stories about John Daly. Passing out on a pool table and waking him up and going out at first tee and shooting 63,
Love it.
So back in the day, you were touring the country, obviously touring the world, playing music and playing golf with all sorts of different musicians and rock stars. What were kind of your favorite people to play with? And what are some stories from the music crowd playing
Well,
golf?
there's a couple of players that you would not expect, like Dweezil Zappa, Frank Zappa's son, killer guitar player, amazing guitar player, great stick, he can play. Damien from No Doubt, the drummer,
Really?
scratch. And you don't want to play him. He takes the game as seriously as he does drums. A lot of country western guys play. And then there's the guys that like to play. Meatloaf. Eddie Van Halen one time came up and he goes, I want to play golf. And I said, well, come over to Phoenix and we'll go out and play. So we played around and it was just, horrendous. And he says, what about my game? And I said, Eddie, you are a great guitar player. And he goes, yeah, but what about me? I said, Eddie, you write great songs.
Full stop.
And really, in the end, he says, can you get me a guitar lesson with Glenn Campbell? Because Glenn Campbell, anybody that knows anything about guitar knows how Glenn Campbell is one of the best ever. And these rock guys were going, could you get me a lesson with him? Eddie Van Halen getting a lesson from Glenn Campbell.
Wow.
But the thing about Eddie that I liked was the fact that he kept playing. He kept going. And I told him up front, it doesn't matter how good you are, just get out and play. Because you will eventually get better. But we used to have a thing called the Fairway to Heaven, and it was all the rock stars, and in Vegas, and it was a big tournament. I mean, it was a really big tournament. And I played with the Callaway team. And it was John Daly and myself and all these guys from Callaway. And we won it 6 years in a row.
Oh my goodness.
So we didn't get invited back after a while. But all the guys were out there, guys from Bon Jovi, guys from Motley Crue, guys from all these different bands. And you would be surprised. The heavier the band, bands that were like really heavy, monster death metal bands, 3 of them play golf. It's just that with all the tattoos, you can imagine. We were in Japan, and when you have that kind of tattoos, that's Yakuza.
Yeah.
And my bass player has sleeves, and they asked him to put a long sleeve shirt on because the Japanese people there were terrified, thought he was Yakuza. So all these bands that come over there from America with all these tattoos,
Goodness.
I think they're probably used to it now.
Fully
But,
clothed.
Wow. So I've heard you play golf almost every day.
6 days a week.
So I would love to know, what is it that you love most about this crazy game, and what keeps you coming back and wanting to play so much just day after day after day?
It's you would think that if you played 6 days a week for 30 years, you would have a pretty good handle on it. And yet, playing with Chris, I have great days, and I have just days where I go, how come I can't get out of the sand trap today? All of us, it's like playing guitar. It's like doing anything. You never will ever conquer the game. And I said, and that's the fun of it. You know, I have days when I never miss a fairway, never miss a green. I have more fun when I'm behind a tree trying to figure out how to, do I hit a 4-iron here down? And, you know, when you have to use your imagination in the game, and then something that you do really well all of a sudden isn't there. All of a sudden your pitching wedge is over there. You're going, what? These are my hands, right? Yeah. The game can't never be conquered. And there's nothing better than first thing in the morning. We play at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, hitting that first tee ball off, you know. And I'm like, you know, playing to probably 4 right now, 4 handicap. But that keeps the game interesting for me. I have just as much fun playing when I'm not playing well as I do when I'm playing well.
I think you're being humble. Chris says you hit the ball in an absolute string, that you never miss a fairway.
That was the Johnny Miller thing. Johnny Miller says, look, he says, you're never going to win the long drive contest. He said, but I'm going to give you a swing that you can repeat, and you're going to hit it 240 down the middle every day, all day. And it does frustrate the hell out of people.
I was going to say, definitely.
They go, do you ever miss a? I used to play with John Daly, and you'd look away and he goes, ho hum. Because he said, I don't have to ask where that went, right? I said, no, it's down the middle. He says, my game's so much more fun than yours. It goes out here, and then it goes over there, and then bounces back in.
Is it a top secret swing tip, or can you share the swing with us?
You know,
I want to hit fairways.
He just kept taking things out of my swing until it was a simple swing. You know, basically, here's your ball here. He says, this is where, I want you to hit it here. On the inside of the ball. So I have a natural draw now. My ball goes out and just draws a little bit into the, and I don't even know how, but that's my swing now. And I hit a high softball, sort of a little bit right to left. But it's pretty much 90%, you know. And it does drive people crazy. And I don't hit irons. I hit all hybrids.
Really?
I hit all hybrids.
There we go.
So like no 9-iron, no 8-iron.
No.
All hybrids.
All hybrids.
Like
Yeah.
what's your highest lofted hybrid?
I have a 9 hybrid, but I do. The only irons I have is wedges. You know, but to me, hybrids are so much easier to hit than irons, and especially, you know, I used to play irons all the time. When I got to be 60, I started going, why am I hitting a 3-iron? I'd rather hit an 11 wood. You know, I was always a better. My bag is all woods. I mean, it's a driver to the 11 wood, and then it's 6 hybrid, 7 hybrid, 8 hybrid, 9 hybrid, and then wedges.
And this is a 4 handicap.
I was about to say that.
Plays 6 days a week.
Case,
Hybrids and woods.
Case closed on people who say that you can't play a full bag of hybrids.
Absolutely.
For sure.
No, I've been playing hybrids for 20 years. You know, it's like my favorite thing in the world. It's so much more solid. And you can get hybrids where you really can't shank the ball. You know, the design of them where you honestly can't shank them. And you can chip just as well. Well, you have your wedges to chip with, you know. 100, and, you know, approach wedge, pitching wedge. You know, that's the easy part of the game, really. But that's where all the scoring is,
Right.
You know.
Go for it.
I was telling these guys, the longest tenured player with Callaway,
Oh, yeah.
longest tenured staff member, and your club collection. So tell these guys about it's kind of a time capsule of the evolution of Callaway.
My golf room looks like a Callaway outlet, or even a Callaway museum, because they started sending me clubs when they first started, and Ely even gave me a couple of the old Persimmon Callaway driver.
Oh, wow.
Which is about 3 of them in the world, you know. And they gave me all this stuff that they were, well, this is a great story about Ely, okay. When the ERC came out, we were talking, and I said, yeah, you know, the funny thing was about our career was, as soon as they started banning us, trying to ban us in England, we sold out every ticket. And the record went right to #1 because we had to see what this was. We had to,
Right.
And he says, so if I made a driver that would go 10 yards further, 15 yards further, and it cost $600, and this is back when drivers cost $250, cost $600, and it was illegal, I said, you wouldn't be able to make enough of them. And of course they banned it. It was 1/1000th of an inch that didn't specify, which it's a trampoline effect. You have to swing it exactly this amount of time. And the average guy's not going to really get that much out of it. But it's a good driver. But they're not going to get that trampoline effect unless they're swinging pretty hard to get the ball to, to jump. So they banned it in America. But they didn't ban it all over the world. His biggest audience is the world, not just America.
Right.
So
sure.
he made a fortune on it. But when he first made it, he sent it to me. He says, I want you to hit this. And I said, okay. And he says, you hit it down the middle all the time. He said, I want to see if this... So I was their Iron Byron. I would get the club before any of the pros would get it. And I would take it out and I'd play 6 days. And I'd go, I'm pushing it right for some reason. He said, okay, send it back. And he'd send it back to me then. And he said, try that now. I go, yeah, I'm hitting it straight now. So I was, and the pros would come. I said, "What is that?" And I go, "You can't look at that."
You'll see it in a little bit.
These guys are touring pros. I'd say, "I can't show you." I said, "Just Ely and I know about this." Okay. But I'd send him pictures like at the British Open, where Nicklaus is hitting the ERC. And Nicklaus had his own set of clubs. Palmer, all of them were hitting the ERC driver because they could make it go 15 yards further. And it was in Europe. It wasn't in the States. So that was just an idea of, you always think of a guy that thinks outside the box. He didn't know there was a box. He would always just come in, well, why can't we just do this? Okay, let's do it.
So you guys are actually more similar than you are different. And you were on the research and design team, basically, at Callaway.
I got to
the sounds
be
of it.
In the closet.
my other favorite story was this. I'm playing at Champions Gate, just some friends in Orlando, and it's Ledbetter's place. And Ledbetter was in a lot of commercials with us. So I'm out there and I see these 3 carts coming. And it's Arnold Palmer and all these Japanese guys. And he's got this club with him, and he drives up, and he's with Callaway now. And he goes, "Alice." And I go, "Hey, good to see you," And he says, "Here's the new driver." He says, "Show him how to hit it."
Nope.
You show him how to hit it. You're Arnold Palmer, So I hit it right down the middle. I really clocked it really well, And I said, "That feels great. I haven't even seen that one yet." And he said, he looks at the guys. He says, "He's our test dummy here. He does all of our test stuff."
Coming from Arnold
And I
Palmer.
went,
Yeah.
and I went over to him. I said, "Never do that to me again, okay?" He said, "You hit more fairways than anybody." He was great. I really liked him. He was like everybody's cool uncle. I was always surprised he didn't go, "Here's $5. Put it in your pocket. Don't let your mom know."
So that type of environment, when you get put on the spot by Arnold Palmer, "Hey, we need you to hit this in front of these investors
Yeah.
or these guys,"
Yeah.
how does something like that compare to getting up on stage in front of a sold-out auditorium? You've got 100,000 plus people watching you.
It all comes down to if you know what you're doing. And when I get on stage, I feel more at home on stage than I do off stage. When I'm in front of an audience, okay, I'm home now. This is. In fact, I play my best golf at the Phoenix Open because there's 150,000 people there, and so I better perform that day. I remember one year I had 6 birdies at the Phoenix Open because there was an audience there. Now, if they wouldn't have been there, I might have had 1. But because there was an audience, it was a performance to me. It wasn't just a game. It was now I better nail this. So it's the same thing. If you play 6 days a week for 30 years, I don't care what you're doing, you're going to get really good at it. And getting up on the tee to me is like getting on stage. I know I'm going to hit it in the middle. you know, so that's not even a thought.
Must be nice.
Seriously.
But it's only because that I've forced myself into, that's just a muscle memory thing. It's like a muscle memory. No, okay, back, keep the head down, stay behind it, let it go, you know. And you know, I mean, it's now there's other technical parts of the game that I'm not that good at all, you know. But I know I can hit it off the tee. The more people there, the better. Because I'll always hit it really good if there's more people there. If there's nobody there,
Yeah, not focused. Who cares? It's no big deal.
So you've seen Callaway from the beginning until now. I mean, that's a huge evolution of driver technology, especially.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is your favorite Callaway club that you've hit during your time with Callaway?
you know, I would still, every once in a while, he knows this, I'll go out and I'll bring out a biggest Big Bertha driver.
Yep, it's a good one.
And it is so easy to hit. And that thing goes right down, and it has a great sound to it. Makes that little click,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
And
he still
I
hits
could,
it straight.
if somebody
I
said,
kind of figured.
you can take any of these drivers, and they're all good drivers, they're all great. I might go for the biggest Big Bertha, you know, with the right shaft in there.
Right.
As long
But
as it's got the right
that head is just so good. And the steel heads were really good too. The original steel heads were really, really good. I mean, people like Annika, you know, when they brought all the new equipment in, she goes, I've won 50 tournaments with these. I'm not taking these out of my bag. She had
Why
the
would
steel
you?
head irons. And and Rocco had a 4 and a 7 steelhead plus that he wouldn't take out of his bag. He said, I won too many tournaments with these. Why would you change? You know?
Yeah, it goes back to that not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
you know.
I know we've been at it for a little while. I know you have other obligations today, so we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
If you guys any other questions or
I just have one. I mean, you've played all over the globe. Favorite golf course?
Oh wow, it's so much. It's like picking your favorite child. You know, anytime that you've played, you know, Cypress Point, you know, you're kind of going, okay. I belong to one in Maui called McKenna, in Maui. That's my favorite course. It's a discovery course, but it's like playing in paradise. I mean, you're on the tee. If you're a member there, you can wear cut-off shorts, no shoes, no shirt. There's whales coming out of the water. There's rock and roll blaring, and you look ahead of you, and there's Spieth, Rahm, Ricky, all those guys are out there, and they're all like, you know, one, I think Ricky shot 59, Rahm shot 60, and they're getting ready for the big tournament, you know,
Right.
at Kapalua, but they
Yeah.
all play at McKenna. So
That's cool.
if you're a member there, you can do anything you want to do. You want to play 9 guys? Okay. Who
Sure,
cares?
why not?
Go. But I mean, it's not just that. The golf course is spectacular. And the weather is 84 degrees every single day. It never rains, and the wind is barely there. So when you're at Kapalua, you're getting blown off the course, you know.
Right, yes.
And it's fun. Kapalua is a lot of fun to play. But if you want to just play like every single day on the same course, that was the one you want to play at McKenna.
so
I'm
next
just
trip to
curi-
Hawaii,
Yeah.
we got to go to McKenna.
Absolutely. I'm just curious about, I know you have a new album out now, Detroit Sounds. How did that kind of come together, and why the callback to Detroit?
Well, again, it was almost people think I'm nostalgic because we broke out of Detroit. I mean, our first album that was a big hit was out of Detroit. Everything happened out of Detroit. And it's the 50th anniversary of that album. But we didn't even know that. But I told my producer, I said, we want to make a real hard rock album. So, can't really do that in Nashville. Can't really do that in LA. Can't really do that in New York. The only place you could really make that album is Detroit, because that's the home of hard rock. So we went to Detroit, wrote the album in Detroit about the characters around Detroit and people I knew and everything, and then we used all Detroit players. I used guys from MC5, and I used guys from Grand Funk, and you know, all these great players, put a band together, and did it all live in the studio. And to my surprise, it debuted at #1. I mean, I went, what? I mean, I was not expecting that at all. So every 48 years, I try to have a #1 album. My last one was $1 Billion Babies in '73. So I said, okay, I'm trying to figure out when the next one is.
That's great. Congratulations on that.
Yes.
But it's
That's
it
awesome.
rocks. The album rock. Bob Ezra, my producer, is a genius. You know, he's just an absolute genius at putting all this stuff on and getting the sounds and making it sound great. So it was, you know, we're working on two new albums right now, actually.
Nice.
That album is only 2 or 3 months old, and we're already working on the next 2 albums.
May as well.
Yeah.
Staying
Can't tour till September.
Busy man.
If you're home, may as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, guys, this has been a lot of fun.
This has been
Yeah,
awesome.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad
Thank
you
you.
guys like the place. This is
Yeah.
my
This is
first time
fantastic.
seeing the new one. The original one is over on Thunderbird, and that's about twice the size
Wow.
of this one. Yeah. But this one will be great. We want one in Tucson. We need one in Tucson. We need one in Flagstaff. You know, Arizona needs one in every major city.
Agreed.
It's awesome that you support the teens. It really,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. We'll get a golf program somehow.
I'd be more than happy to help.
Yeah.
I mean, we know a couple guys.
Yeah, that's right.
We could make that happen.
Oh, believe me, I'll be leaning on you for that. Don't worry.
You just got to set up a golf net in here. Get a
That's
launch
it.
monitor, get it going.
Working on it.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank
my
you.
friend.
All right.
We will be seeing you on the golf course tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Legend Trail, right?
Thank
That's
you
it.
so much.
That's you're gonna love
Appreciate the
Legend
time.
Trail. It's so much fun.